It's 8 o'clock. This is the UK Tonight. Coming up, Gregg Wallace says he will not go quietly amid reports he has been sacked by Masterchef. The presenter says a report into his conduct has cleared him of the most serious allegations. But the BBC says another 50 people have come forward with complaints. Also ahead, the shocking human impact of the Post Office IT scandal now laid bare. The public inquiry finds as many as 13 people may have taken their own lives because of the faulty Horizon software. And bosses maintained the fiction that the system was always right. Plus, 3 men are guilty of an arson attack in London carried out on behalf of the Wagner Russian mercenary group. And we'll take you live to Windsor Castle, where the King will host a state banquet later this hour in honour of the French President and the First Lady. All that to come and more here on the UK Tonight.
I'll get again.
Good evening. The TV presenter Gregg Wallace has hit out at the BBC, insisting he will not go quietly following reports that he's been sacked from Masterchef. He was speaking ahead of the publication of an investigation into allegations about his conduct. Gregg Wallace claims the report clears him of the most serious allegations of inappropriate sexual comments and behaviour. Tonight, though, BBC News is claiming that 50 more people have come forward with fresh allegations about Gregg Wallace, which he says amounts to uncorroborated tittle-tattle. Sky's Amelia Harper is here with me in the studio. Tell us more about this, Amelia.
Well, Gregg Wallace has this evening issued some really fiery remarks in response to claims that he has been dropped by Masterchef, which is the BBC's flagship cooking programme. And in a statement on Instagram, he has said he will not be going quietly. Now, Gregg Wallace was being investigated over historical allegations about misconduct while he was working at the BBC. And the production company that made Masterchef, Banijay UK, commissioned an investigation into him. And as you said, that report was due to be published in the next couple of days or potentially next week. Gregg Wallace, there behind us, wanting to issue this statement ahead of that report. And as you said, it comes as 50 new people have approached the BBC with fresh claims about alleged misconduct, something that Gregg Wallace denies. And just to rewind a little bit to remind you how we got here, Gregg Wallace stepped back from presenting MasterChef in November last year. So after the BBC were approached by individuals who alleged misconduct, they said that he'd made inappropriate comments towards staff and celebrity guests over a range of programmes over 17 years. And speaking on Instagram, Gregg said that he wanted to speak out ahead of the publication of this report. He said in a statement, "I will not go quietly. I will not be cancelled for convenience. I was tried by media and hung out to dry well before the facts were established. The full story of this incredible injustice must be told, and it's very much a matter of public interest." Now, in this statement, he also says that he admits that the report found him primarily guilty of inappropriate language between 2005 and 2018. But he said he'd been cleared of the most serious accusations made against him. Of course, we haven't seen that report. This is what he's saying in that statement. And he said as well, Matt, that he was hired to be this cheeky greengrocer, hosting this programme. But in that statement, he said that now his personality was seen as part of the problem. And we've also had a spokesperson from the BBC give us a statement in response to Gregg Wallace's words. Banijay UK, as I said, that the production company for MasterChef, instructed the law firm Lewis Silkin to run an investigation into allegations against Gregg Wallace. We are not going to comment until the investigation is complete and the findings are published. And actually, it's a similar story for Banijay UK. They're not commenting until the report comes out in the next few days.
Amelia, thank you very much indeed, and apologies for a couple of technical issues during that chat there. Moving on, the human impact of the Post Office IT scandal was really laid bare today as the public inquiry published the first part of its final report. The inquiry chair, Sir Wyn Williams, said there's a real possibility that 13 people took their own lives as a result of the suffering that they endured. Post Office bosses also were accused of maintaining the fiction that the software worked properly when it didn't. And Sir Wyn said 10,000 people are eligible to submit compensation claims following what's been called the worst miscarriage of justice in British legal history. Sky's Adele Robinson has more.
It should haunt the people who did it.
The post office destroyed Seema's life.
It's like keeping you alive, but cutting you small, giving you a wound till you die. There's more horrible way to kill somebody.
Convicted and imprisoned while pregnant, 20 years on, the first official inquiry report into the scandal is delivered.
It's been a really frightening, angry journey, but it's all going in the right direction now.
A direction focused on what was described as the disastrous impact of what happened to thousands of victims, with 13 people believed to have taken their lives because of it.
The picture which has emerged and which is described in my report is profoundly disturbing. In summary, what does that picture reveal? Many thousands of people have suffered serious financial detriment, and for a sizable proportion, that detriment subsists. Many people have, inevitably, suffered emotional turmoil and significant stress.
His report described wholly unacceptable behaviour by the Post Office and Fujitsu, concluded that Post Office bosses maintained a fiction that the faulty Horizon system was always accurate, and criticised redress schemes for being flawed.
You still don't have the money that you're entitled
No.
to.
I know. And this is our own money we're asking for. All the suggestions are very good, but it's the government need to follow and implement that.
Do you have faith that they will?
It have to be done. It should be sorted. We won't give up.
The report, however, said there had been a failure to grasp formidable difficulties in delivering redress.
We heard the rather stark figures that 13 people are believed to have taken their own lives as a result of what happened. What would you say to them for the part that the Post Office played in that?
I mean, look, some of the human impacts, apology is not sufficient. You know, the harm that the Post Office has caused to people over decades is just completely unacceptable. And it's horrific, is the only way to describe it. So, you know, I am genuinely really, really sorry, but that's not enough.
Sir Wynne also called for urgent action to deliver full and fair redress. And he made 19 recommendations, but of course none of them are legally binding. So the bigger, more important issue now is exactly what the Post Office, the government and Fujitsu plan to deliver in response, and how quickly they do it.
To be clear, I am very sympathetic to Sir Wynne's 19 recommendations today.
The government will respond after carefully considering them and have said they're pushing Fujitsu to act on compensation.
There is no doubt that Fujitsu has a moral obligation to contribute towards the costs of this scandal. We have underlined that in face-to-face meetings to them. To be fair, they have accepted that they have that moral obligation. We have made clear to them that we think they should make an interim payment.
Among the recommendations, redress for the family members of victims worst affected by the scandal. The daughters of Elaine Hood, convicted in 2003, welcome it.
It's validating for all those years, for every one of us that's suffered because of what we've been through with our parents. I'd say it's validating.
Yeah, it's very validating, yeah.
It's not closure, though, is it?
No. No.
Closure will be prosecutions at the end and real justice.
Fujitsu, meanwhile, reiterated their apology for their role in victims' suffering, said they're considering recommendations and are engaged with government on contributing to compensation. They, the Post Office and government, have until October to respond to the report.
That gives them their summer holiday to work on it, doesn't it, you know? For goodness sake, get on with it and get on with paying people, because we are all sick to the back teeth of it.
Adele Robinson, Sky News.
Well, that all happened today at the Oval Cricket Ground in South London. I headed there as well to speak to some of the other victims of the Post Office scandal as they continue their fight for justice and compensation, which, as I'm sure you realise, is taking years for most of them.
I just felt that there was a lot of recommendations again, and I think a lot of inquiries ended up with a lot of recommendations, but it's whether the recommendations are actioned. I mean, we've seen no action, a lot of words and no action, so it was difficult to see.
So you're frustrated, ultimately?
Yes, because I think it has statutory power. What's the point of having any statutory power if you don't have the power to enforce these changes? And the only people who seem to have the power to enforce these changes are the people that were directing the wrongdoing to.
I think Sir Win said, let me just find the quote here, a lot of this feels like it's been kicked into the long grass. Things are just being dragged out. Is that your experience of it?
It is. After so many years of going backwards and forwards with the post office, my initial application was put in. It took over 2 years for the post office to just assess my claim and come back to me with asking for further information. So it just seems to be like some sort of delay tactic. You know, what do they want? Do they want us to get older and non-wiser and just walk away? Which is never going to happen because it's going to be going on for years to come.
Do you think you'll ever get what you think you deserve, given what you've heard from Sir Win Williams today?
I mean, obviously the recommendations have been quite wide-ranging, and obviously some of them impact on me and some of them do not. But the problem is it's such a still an adversarial and legalistic process that Sir Win's mentioned that needs to be taken out. This is not a court. This is supposed to be the government and post office delivering full and fair redress that's been promised. And at the moment, I just can't see that happening. And it will now be up to the government and whether they accept the recommendation that Sir Win Williams has asked to be put forward.
To use everyday language, is it set up to make you feel like claiming the compensation you're somehow pulling a fast one?
I mean, that's what it is. I mean, it's like I said, the government asks you to appoint independent experts that the government themselves pay for. So you appoint all of those. You don't come up with the figures yourself. You don't pluck them out of thin air. They look at all the evidence, they look at all the documents, they come up with the figure, and you submit that into the scheme. And then the government uses their lawyers to rip it all apart. So, you said it's like they're re-challenging you. It's like somebody said, it's akin to being on trial a second time. Yeah. First of all, you're accused, and now you're going through a second trial to say, well, are you claiming the right sum of money?
You've been waiting 26 years to try and put things right, because this all started with you and your husband being accused of wrongdoing, something that you didn't do.
Yes, and they knew that. They told us. They knew we weren't stealing the money. They knew we were putting the money back into the post office, as the post office rules made you do. And they knew we weren't falsifying the accounts. But they couldn't find where the errors were. And they just left us. Now, they had a duty of care to come and support us when they can tell us, we know you're not stealing. We know you're paying it in. We know you're not falsifying the accounts, but we don't know what's happening. And they just left us to go on with it. So for 26 years, when they kicked us out, we've had to survive on benefit rates of living.
The remarkable Betty Brown at the end there, 92 years old. She is the oldest person fighting for compensation. Let's get a flavour of what others think are involved in all this. In the studio with me is Neil Hudgell, a lawyer for many of the victims, and joining us from Scarborough as well is the former sub-postmaster, Lee Castleton. It is good to see you both, and I'm going to ask you both the same question to begin. Lee first. What do you think about today's report?
Well, I think he could have gone further, but he drew a line in the sand. I like the fact that he separated accountability and the sort of human impacts, because it puts a focus back on what actually happened to the people, the victims, and it doesn't sort of dilute it with the perpetrators of this. So, it can only make recommendations, and whether the government choose to pick those up, we just need more pressure. Just need to keep doing what we're doing.
Neil, what do you think?
Yeah, I agree with a lot with what Lee says there. I think, first and foremost, he starts with the acknowledgement that this is about victims and the heavy toll it's paid on them and continues to pay on them. He obviously teased a little bit about what's coming later in the year with the next part of the report into who knew what and where and when. And then he starts to talk about changes that can be made. There's no silver bullet. We're not going to rewrite the schemes. It's too late for that. He acknowledges that it's going to be at least the end of next year before there's redress for a lot of people, which is obviously a worry. But in the meantime, there's an opportunity to make some changes that can hopefully bring about some speedier redress for some of those badly affected people.
And he did this. He split his sort of response into two reports because, Lee, he wanted to focus on the impact on victims like you, first and foremost, and, of course, the compensation as well. Do you feel like he's on your side because of that?
Yeah, I just think that he's a very fair man. I think he's given us a huge voice in which to shout, you know, and I really appreciate that. I really appreciate the way that he treats us as victims. I really appreciate the fact that he listens so intently at what we say. There's been many inquiries previously that hasn't been sort of the uptake, and I really do appreciate the way that we're handled. But I think that the words from Post Office and from the government and from DVT, quite often, you know, the deeds do not match the words. And I think he realises that sometimes you're just banging your head against a wall. And I think they need, you know, I know we've said this many times, and I know that it's very difficult to change the schemes, but we need some kind of separation, just some kind of simplicity. I think it's very difficult when a layperson is trying to understand all the legal wranglings. We're meant to be past all that, but we seem to just get bogged down in legal arguments.
I'm a layperson, and it is unbelievably complicated. There are 4 different ways that someone like you, Lee, could get a compensation. It seems, Neil, that 2 of these things are basically going to be merged. What Sir Wyn does talk about, and this is not going to help people like Lee and the others, is in the future there should be one body that deals with this kind of thing should scandals like the Post Office situation arise. What do you think of that?
Absolutely. I mean, we've been learning on the job, so to speak, with these compensation schemes.
Well, not just this job, Hillsborough and the infected blood scandal, and lots of them, really.
Completely right, and we're still learning on the job, and that's the frightening thing, that we're going into new schemes. And we're already spotting flaws and gaps in those. So we need to pull all that together for the greater good when we get round to what's inevitably going to be the next scandal that needs compensated. So it's a very, very wise recommendation.
Sorry, Neil. Lee, what's the situation with your compensation right now?
Can I just say one other thing is, whilst we're learning, Neil, and whilst we're evolving, sadly, so the other side. So every time a bridge is built, somebody else is there to smash it down. I mean, personally, I think that the inquiry should have more powers in compensating. I think they've got all of the documentation there. They can listen to all the representations. They have all the skills of a High Court judge in the place, with all of the you know, silks and the barristers in there. I think it wouldn't be such a big stretch to allow them then to start building a scheme from that in order to I think it would make it very simple. For me, I'm in the process of putting particulars of a claim together to sue Post Office and Fujitsu, and I really, really am looking forward to getting that done and clearing my name and having some vindication.
Yeah, we've had a response from the government. We saw the chairman of the Post Office, who's only been in the post for a year and a bit, down there today. Didn't see Fujitsu when I was at the Oval today, Neil. We've seen the Post Office minister saying he thinks they should make an interim payment because they've already said they take some responsibility for this. What do you make of their approach?
Not so much what I make of it, what the victims make of it. And the victims front and centre of mind is what the Chief Executive of Fujitsu said some 18 months ago, moral obligation. Weasley words, they see it as now. We're now 20 months on from that time, and there's nothing substantive. Hiding behind conversations with government. These are badly traumatised people. One of the recommendations is around restorative justice, in which Fujitsu is supposed to be taking an active role. So it's very pivotal that they stick their head above the parapet and do something tangible.
Yeah. A lot of money has already been spent on this thing. The Post Office themselves have spent in the region of £130 million in relation to all of this. As I said to Lee, I'm a layperson. You wonder if that money would have been better spent going towards the victims.
Well, I think it's very much an accepted position that there are so many victims that are either not compensated, partially compensated or undercompensated. So every penny that goes their way is a penny nearer to full and final settlement.
Lee, back to you. You said you're going to bring your own action. What we did also learn today in the report from Sir Wyn is an understanding of the impact on relatives of those who've been through this, not forgetting the fact that almost 350 have died whilst waiting for the compensation that they are owed. But what do you make of that? Because I know your own daughter, Millie, has been deeply affected by what you had to go through.
Yeah, I mean, my whole family, I have 2 children. My son will not even engage. He won't even speak about you know, the whole process and the path that he's taken through his formative years. And my wife obviously suffered terribly too. And I'm glad that it's been recognised that the families of the accused and are being sort of taken on board. And it's important that we see all of our families in the way that, you know, that shows this can never happen again. It should never have happened in the first place, but it should never happen again. And I think it's important that those voices are heard. I know Millie's statement was very, well, I've never read it, so I can't bring myself to read it. I find it too emotional for me. So, you know, it's important that her voice is heard.
I'm just going to take a step back just to finish off with both of you. It struck me today, speaking to some of the people, how much this has dominated their lives. This all really came about 26 years ago with Horizon being rolled out and people being accused of misusing it soon after that. Lee, I spoke to Chris there, who was 18 when this happened to him, so it's dominated his whole adult life. Betty, of course, 92, the kind of thing that no one in their later years should be having to deal with. How do you get your head around that this has taken up so much of your lifetime?
It's 21 years for me, and it's been the most painful 21 years, and I would never like to repeat it. But it's been virtually all of my children's lives, and I don't think you can ever, you know, obviously have that back. And that's the same for so many of our victims. So many of our group have struggled with this for decades. This isn't something that's happened very quickly. This has evolved over years and years and years. And it's just painful to think how much life has been lost and lives have been lost. 350 lives have been lost in this process. It's, you know, it's disgusting. And this could all change in a moment. We have the capability and the power to change things, but some people choose not to. And that's the biggest problem in this. There's certain people that have the power that choose not to use it.
Yeah, the stark headline, Neil, just to finish off, that came out was Sir Wynne thought 13 people had taken their own lives as a result of this, and 59 others contemplated it or tried as well. It's just hard to put this tragedy in perspective, the biggest miscarriage of justice we've ever known, and so many lives deeply affected or even lost as a result.
Yeah, it just keeps on coming and coming and coming. You know, I have such admiration for the likes of Lee, who keep getting back up and keep campaigning. There were so many hidden victims that are sat there, whose lives have remained ruined, that can't even face coming out of the woodwork.
Yeah. Sorry to say this is not quite the end of it. We're expecting another report from Sir Wynne in a few months' time that will start to apportion blame and who knew what when. As you said, Neil, he intimated that to a small degree in today's report, and no doubt we'll speak again when that happens. For now, thank you both very much indeed. Really appreciate it, Lee.
Thank you so much.
If you have been affected by that story, and how could you not be? It's incredibly moving when you hear people talk about it. You can, of course, contact the Samaritans at any time. Their number is 116 123, or email joe@samaritans.org. Still to come here on the UK Tonight. The French president is given a royal welcome on the first day of his state visit to the UK. We'll have the latest.
gives you the very best of Sky News wherever you are. Breaking news, videos and analysis.
Evidence of the crisis.
Podcasts, watching us live.
Live here from Washington.
Wherever you get your podcast.
All in one place. And all at just the touch of the screen. The Sky News app. Get the full story first.
President Emmanuel Macron has told Parliament here that the UK and France have a duty to tackle illegal migration, promising a concrete, effective and lasting cooperation over the issue. The French president and his wife are on a state visit to the UK, and tomorrow President Macron will get down to work with talks in Downing Street aimed at stopping the small boats. But today is all about the pomp and ceremony, as our royal correspondent Rhiannon Mills explains.
Stepping off the plane, immediately they were met by friendly faces. The Prince and Princess of Wales very deliberately sent to collect President Macron and his wife Bridget. The first sign that this visit was something special. Arriving in Windsor, an old friend was waiting for them. The bond clear between the King and Macron, with an affectionate hand, not once, but twice. Sorry, 3 times. As both couples appeared deep in conversation, there was plenty more to say as they made their way to their carriages. For a spectacle that only the UK can deliver, their procession just inches away from the crowds as they made their way to Windsor Castle. A guard of honour was waiting for the President to inspect the historic setting underpinning the current importance of our military ties. Macron is, of course, known for being tactile. The interactions felt more gentle here, not a political power play for the cameras. That was being reserved for elsewhere. With the closeness between them all, you'd almost think that the royals had personally invited the Macrons. But in the end, it's down to number 10 who comes here for a state visit. And with all the reports around immigration and the small boats issue, this visit does come at a really important time, with hopes that maybe a little bit of soft power may help with those difficult conversations that will lie ahead. With Macron whisked into London, we had the first obvious display of the political significance as he addressed both houses of Parliament.
France and the United Kingdom have a shared responsibility to address irregular migration with humanity, solidarity and firmness. The decisions that we will take at our bilateral summit will respond to our aims for cooperation and tangible results on these major issues.
There is always pressure to deliver the perfect welcome. The French delegation's bags, the only faux pas that we saw so far. As the King, with the help of a few royal trinkets, reinforced that message of a shared history, especially powerful when delivered with a personal touch. Rhiannon Mills, Sky News at Windsor Castle.
And Rhiannon is in Windsor right now. Rhiannon, I know they're due to sit down for a big state banquet this evening. The big question is, English sparkling or French claret?
So it's a mixture, but do you know what? The thing that really stands out to me is the cocktail, which is called l'entente. This is a special idea, that the tradition that the King has started. Cocktail created especially for the occasion. How does this sound? British gin with lemon curd and French pastis, garnished with dried French cornflowers and English roses. Have to say, it did make me think about another member of the royal family, non-working royal, who also likes her dried flowers, the one that lives over in America. But yeah, it's just one of those kind of touches that is all about making this event really special for the Macrons. Because it's hosted in Windsor for the first time in over 10 years, it means that it's got a different location for the state banquet, the stunning St George's Hall. I actually went inside about an hour ago and had a bit of a nose around the table settings. I know who's in there, but I can't tell you because we're not allowed to tell you until they arrive. One person that I do know from a kind of starry perspective that's going to be there is Kristen Scott Thomas, the actress. She's going to take part in the royal procession. But also, of course, all eyes will be on the fact that the Princess of Wales is also attending the state banquet this evening. She, of course, has had to miss a couple of state banquets because of her cancer diagnosis and her recovery as well. So I think she'll probably be plastered all over the front pages tomorrow. Her in a tiara is really one of those important images, I think, for sending kind of the message around the world about the importance of that UK-French relationship. And that is what today has been all about. This evening, there will be plenty of mentions, again, of friendship, shared history. But also we know that the King, in his speech, is going to allude to the complex threats faced by both countries. An interesting word that he's going to use, he's going to say these challenges know no borders. Now, yesterday, talking to the palace, they said, look, he's not specifically talking about immigration, but of course that is an issue that we can't get away from this week. Today, though, all about the soft power, all about the star appeal, the glamour, the pageantry, as over the next couple of days, of course, we're going to move on to the harder politics of all this. But of course, again, the King there laying down those foundations of friendship that the royal family have been really important and really central to ever since that Brexit referendum.
I'm impressed you got in for a nosy around. I hope the security's better this evening, Rhiannon. Yeah. And you know what? They missed a trick not calling it L'Entente Cordial. Obviously, that has to be the name for the drink. Thank you very much indeed. Yeah. Thanks, Rhiannon. Still to come here on the UK Tonight, we'll have the latest from Liverpool Town Hall as the inquiry into the Southport murders begins today. And we'll have all the details as 3 men have been convicted of carrying out an arson attack in London linked to the Russian Wagner paramilitary group. The chair of the public inquiry into the Southport murders has described the attack as one of the most egregious crimes in our country's history. Sir Adrian Fulford said there was a wholesale failure to address the risks that were posed by Axel Rudikabana before he carried out the attack. Sky's chief North of England correspondent Gregg Wallace has this.
Yeah, any taser to me, please. Use a taser, yeah? Taser! Taser!
It is nearly a year since the horrific events in Southport.
There's a knife up there that's been disarmed. Any more kids in there?
Brought to an end with the arrest of Axel Rudikabana, guilty of a carefully planned knife attack. The murders of B.B. King, Elsie Stancombe and Alice Aguiar are as shocking now as they were then, and the questions about whether it should have been prevented need urgent answers. We know Rudikabana had been referred multiple times to police and the government's own counter-terror programme, but he was free to carry out his attack. It is for retired Judge Sir Adrian Fulford to establish how and why, and what could prevent a repeat of what he called one of the most egregious crimes in our history.
Far from being an unforeseeable, catastrophic event, the perpetrator over a number of years posed a very serious and significant risk of violent harm, with a particular and known predilection for knife crime. Furthermore, his ability, unhindered, to access gravely violent material on the internet, to order knives online at a young age, and then to leave home unsupervised to commit the present attack, speaks to a wholesale and general failure to intervene effectively, or indeed at all, to address the risks that he posed.
Sir Adrian said that some might wonder why there was the need for yet another public inquiry, that we already know what happened. But he said this inquiry was critical. It wasn't about papering over the cracks or being wise after the event, he said, but coming up with recommendations that were comprehensive, sensible and achievable. 3 weeks today will be exactly 1 year on. The families of the victims say nothing can change their unimaginable loss, but that everyone has a responsibility to ensure it can't happen again. Gregg Wallace, Sky News, Liverpool.
Next, 3 men have been found guilty of an arson attack on a London warehouse, which was orchestrated by Russia's Wagner paramilitary group. Around £1 million worth of damage was caused by the blaze last March at an industrial unit that was supplying equipment to Ukraine. Sky's Sadia Chowdhury reports now.
They thought this was a straightforward criminal job. But a court has found this attack was orchestrated by the Russian-backed Wagner group. Today, Nikojo Mensah, Jakim Rose and Agnias Asmina were found guilty of arson. The jury had been shown footage of the men lighting the fire at a warehouse in the Cromwell Industrial Estate in East London. Inside were goods destined for Ukraine, including Starlink satellite equipment. Police say these 2 men had organised the attack. Dylan Earle and Jake Reeves had already admitted offences on behalf of a foreign state. Police say Earle was acting for the Wagner Group, a Russian paramilitary unit with close ties to the Kremlin. In messages shown in court, a user widely believed to be a bot instructs him to watch a television spy drama to learn how the group works.
I don't think they particularly cared about, they were more interested in the disposability of these individuals because it meant that, they would take risks. And if it goes wrong, it still has a psychological effect, right? Ultimately, if the fire goes wrong, somebody's caught, and they're sort of low level, still it creates this sort of psychological effect that there's a shadow hand moving through Europe or through London, threatening the security of the state.
The Metropolitan Police says the ringleaders willingly acted as hostile agents on behalf of the Russian state.
I have been surprised by the significant increase in threats from foreign states in the United Kingdom, yes.
And are state threats putting pressure on your resources at all?
Yes, of course.
Russia says it's never engaged in sabotage activities against the United Kingdom and describes this trial as politically motivated. Its embassy in London told Sky News the malevolent campaign of anti-Russian scaremongering deployed by the British authorities and some complicit media serves predominantly domestic purposes, in particular with a view to desensitising the electorate to worsening economic problems and military spending hikes. Russia is not at war with the UK, but threats attributed to it are certainly being felt here. Sadia Chowdhury, Sky News.
Football now, and England and Wales are back in action at the Women's Euros tomorrow night, with both teams knowing defeat could spell the end of their tournament. It comes after the Wales team bus was involved in a road accident. Fortunately, no one is believed to have been hurt. Our sports correspondent Rob Harris reports now from Zurich.
Surrounded by the beauty and tranquility of Zurich, England have tried to stay calm. The team's priority, soul-searching rather than sightseeing, scrutinising what went wrong in their losing start to the Euros.
We weren't up to it against France. We're our own biggest critics as players, so we're all ready to get back out there and have another game.
And they're back here to face the Netherlands. The heat wave's gone, but the heat is on for the reigning champions and their manager.
We don't talk about consequences, we talk about our game plan again. We talk about what we have to do to be at our best and how we can exploit spaces that the Netherlands leave behind and how we can take out those strengths. We want to execute better, want to be less sloppy.
This is new territory for Savina Wiegman. Never before has she had to bounce back from a group stage defeat. In fact, as a national team manager, she's always reached finals, twice with England, twice with the Netherlands.
Fans are backing the Lionesses to avoid a group stage exit. That hasn't happened in any tournament since Euro 2013.
You've got to believe in the manager, you've got to believe in the team. I think as a fan, you can't, you sit there doubting it. You can't do that. But I think that there are questions being raised, but you've got to stick behind them.
Wales are in the same group, in the same predicament. After losing to the Dutch, realistically needing to beat France to have any hope of making the quarter-finals. But the team's plans were disrupted by their bus being involved in a crash on the eve of the match.
I think everyone from all the reports everyone's okay. Our priority is just to get them all together and away from the scene and then reassess. We've got great staff and we've got really good support for them, and we'll be checking in just to make sure they continue to be okay. And also, and just as importantly, I believe the other car involved, I think everyone is okay there as well.
This is the first time Wales have qualified for a women's tournament, so expectations are lower for fans.
We're realists, you know, we've played a very good side.
Anything's possible with the Welsh, and they play for the pride of the shirt, and they give it their all, and that's all we ask for as fans.
But time could be running out for England and Wales in Switzerland. If both lose tomorrow, their clash this weekend will be a dead rubber ahead of early flights home. Rob Harris, Sky News, Zurich.
These are live pictures from Windsor Castle. We're expecting the state banquet to get underway shortly to welcome the French President Emmanuel Macron and his wife Brigitte, the First Lady there. This is a rather lingering shot at the rather lovely roof, which is probably not what you want to see. You want to see the table laid out. I'm sure as that shot slowly tilts down, we'll get a sense of it in a minute. They may have even laid out that l'entente cocktail that Rihanna was telling us about earlier on. Here we go. You get more of a sense of just how regal and opulent the whole thing is. People milling around there. Kristen Scott Thomas, Rihanna told us, is going to be one of the guests. She'd heard that. Why? Well, she's obviously a British actor, but she was based in Paris for quite a long time and apparently is pretty revered there. I'm pretty sure she's fluent in French as well, so that makes sense to have her present. There you go. A close-up. What a table. Where do they put the salt and pepper? I can't tell, but clearly they've got plenty of room. Very opulent, and wow, what a dinner to be at this evening. We'll hope to bring you more of that detail coming up later here on Sky News. In the meantime, still to come here on the UK tonight, as that pianist tinkles away on the ivories. Carlos Alcaraz puts on a show in his Wimbledon quarter-final. We'll show you just how he knocked out Britain's Cam Norrie next.
Big stories don't always come from big cities. I'm Lisa Dowd and I'm Sky's Midlands correspondent.
You are not getting in this elevator, okay?
The judge made it very clear that she could see no justifiable reason why Sakulas wasn't here facing British justice.
I promised I would get him justice.
Free, wherever you get your news. This is what they're up against. The wind is the really big problem. It is back-breaking work and the smoke is thick.
It's been working well. Water levels are dropping, but no one knows what impact further rain will have. What would you do if this place wasn't open? This is the exact spot in Nottingham where their 19-year-old son, Barnaby Webber, lost his life.
I just think it's so cruel and so harsh.
It's really scary. We're terrified.
In this community, I'm told that everybody knows someone affected by COVID.
Hopefully this will be the last wave.
Sky News gets the full story first. Change seems tantalisingly close in this corner of the UK. Wales was the first to introduce the plastic bag charge. It's legal to let go. Set the speed and take the hands off. It's almost driverless, but not quite. Hans is a highly trained police dog. The force is incredible. It's really frightening, actually. This is my patch, my specialism. It's also my home.
I want to start the programme today with a name, a story that I can't get out of my head.
The campaign has now started.
This is your chance. Tell people. This is the Politics Hub. It's not correct. The tax burden is projected to go up.
No,
but I'm not. This is my interview. Look, this is ridiculous. No one does care about us.
I'm really interested in that. On the Politics Hub, you like to push the boundaries. He's got the majority. The question is, what is he going to do with it?
Welcome back. Let's get the sport now with Chris Latcham.
Staying connected is vital for business. Sky Business sponsors this report.
I'm sorry, I just have a German passport. Hopefully I can convince them and show them and prove them that I'm proud to be the English manager.
For only the third time in history, the FA have turned to a foreign manager to take charge of the men's England team. Thomas Tuchel follows in the footsteps of Sven-Göran Eriksson.
If we don't do results, of course, they will try to hang me, but even if I was an Englishman, they hang me. So that's...
And Fabio Capello.
A winner with a capital W. That was the template. This is the man.
When the news about Tuchel broke, there was a mixed media reaction. Some in Tuchel see a Champions League winning manager and the best candidate available if you want to win a World Cup. That's certainly how the FA bosses view it. But for others, there's a more fundamental principle here. They believe that an Englishman should be in charge of England.
Well, I was hoping we'd get an English manager, but when you look at the choices, they're very few, aren't they?
The jobs are so prestigious and there's so much money in the job that people are tempted to spread the net wide.
There's nothing in the water that stops it. It's all about opportunity. I think it's probably a little bit simplistic just to put it down to national borders.
On whichever side of the debate you fall, there is one fact which is indisputable. The pool of English coaches at the elite level of the game is pretty shallow. And the key question is, why?
What we are deemed as English coaches, we're responsible for.
Do you feel like to get a job in the Premier League as an Englishman, you have to be promoted to the division?
I would say 99 times out of 100. You can't just give people jobs.
I want to try and help in any way that I can produce more English managers.
I'm at St George's Park. Opened in 2012, the FA intended this place to be a centre of excellence and a destination of choice for players, coaches, administrators and officials alike. Why have the FA turned to the continent to replace an English manager who's been the most successful in the top job since Sir Alf Ramsey? Well, to answer that question, you have to look much deeper within the game. Before the birth of the Premier League, the English First Division was won predominantly by teams with British managers. 38 Englishmen, 10 Scotsmen and an...
Sky Business sponsors this report.
Chris, thank you very much indeed. Bringing you back live shots of Windsor ahead of that state banquet for President Macron. And let's bring in our royal commentator extraordinaire, Alistair Bruce, who joins me now. Alistair, it's slightly ahead of the more formal arrivals there, but it certainly looks special.
The royal household have been working on this for some days, and even constructing the great table at the heart of St George's Hall takes quite some time. They've got all the gilt out. They have raided the great flower nurseries and brought the splendour of all of that to this table. And it is an amazing setting in which to lay on the very best of the United Kingdom for our chief guest as a nation, the President of France, and for him to see the very best. And it's a setting against which then the process of good diplomacy can take place.
There you go. We're seeing some of the famous faces arrive. Kemi Badenoch arriving, the leader of the opposition, of course. We're not entirely sure as yet as to who is going to arrive. But we can certainly expect, Alistair, some of those politicians, the Prime Minister as well, who President Macron addressed earlier on at Parliament.
What the King and Queen will want to achieve here for the nation, and in collaboration with the French Embassy and, of course, the President of France, is a combination not only of political guests, but also people from the arts, from sport, people who, in terms of their involvement in industry, have played a part in increasing the relationships and the success of the two nations. And that really, I think, will come through in the two speeches, which will be given, first of all, by the King, welcoming the President of France, and then from the President of France back to wish the King's health. And it is done in a setting that was set up by Edward III back in the 14th century. So it's an incredible place, and it has so many echoes. But for your question earlier on, where do they get the salt and pepper? You'll see on each place setting, between each view, you can see the salt, pepper and mustard for later on. And the number of glasses that they need for the various courses that are coming, and I count 5.
Alistair, there is no pulling the wool over your eyes. You have an answer for all of these things. Good to know they're well served by the salt and pepper. I did ask Rhiannon about the wine. I was only half being flippant because, of course, France is famous the world over for its wine. I'm pretty sure the King likes a decent Bordeaux, a decent claret at times. But, of course, English sparkling is pretty popular as well, and certainly stands up to scrutiny when compared to famous French champagne. So do you think they're going to cover both bases with what they serve this evening?
Well, definitely. In fact, the King has chosen to have for the toasts an English sparkling wine, which is a collaboration with Taittinger. It's called Domaine Evrémonde, and it has been developed at and grown in a winery in Chilham in Kent. So it is a competitor for the very best of English sparkling wines. And I think that it was launched particularly with a visit by the Duchess of Edinburgh, who will also be part of the hosting party here in St George's Hall. But they're running a little bit late, to be honest, and they're probably busy trying to get the guests into position in order that the procession led by the King and the President of France can come in to start the dinner.
I think we just saw Sir Mark Rowley, the Commissioner of the Metropolitan Police, the country's most senior police officer. Also, Alistair, Mary Earps, the fairly recently retired England women's goalkeeper, not at the Euros. I wonder what she'll have to say about the football, because England lost to France in their first game of the Euros. The conversation, the small talk, is going to have to be quite diplomatic, is it?
Well, it is a diplomatic event, but it's all about winning and losing. But the aim is that here, a relationship between the United Kingdom and France, which is already very strong. There are challenges, those are going to be addressed politically. But this is a chance of making friends amongst the people who do set the direction for the United Kingdom and for France. And there is no way better to lay on a welcome than in Windsor Castle in St George's Hall and with all that's available. And the music from the Duchess of Edinburgh's string quartet from the Army is playing to keep them all going.
I'm still hanging out for an invite. One day, Alistair, one day. Listen, thank you so much for sharing your insights and expertise for now. I know we'll be returning to you here on Sky News when the real dignitaries, the King and the President, start to arrive a bit later on. For now, Alistair, thank you very much indeed. OK, let's take a quick look at the weather now.
The ideal atmosphere, whatever the altitude. The weather, sponsored by Qatar Airways.
Returning high pressure will make it mostly very warm and dry this week, with heatwave conditions again developing quite widely at the weekend. Expect a largely fine evening tonight, but low cloud will affect some western parts with drizzly rain for western Scotland. Low cloud will become more extensive tonight, bringing some fog to coasts and hills. There'll be a bit of patchy light rain in the northwest, but most other places look dry. It'll be mild overall. Tomorrow morning will bring sunny spells, but there will be quite a lot of cloud in the north. Expect some drizzly rain over the blustery northwest of Scotland. Elsewhere, though, mainly dry, bar the odd shower over England and Wales. Top temperatures will be widely above the average, 27 in the warm southeast. The afternoon will bring more in the way of sunshine, but northwest Scotland will stay dull and damp. Quick look ahead to Thursday, mostly fine and very warm, locally hot in the south.
Breathtaking views with clear skies ahead. Qatar Airways sponsors the weather.
That's all from the UK tonight. Back tomorrow at 8 o'clock. Up next, it is The World, of course, with Yalda Hakim. Bye for now.